Welcome to Meet the Leaders. Hi there, I'm David Smith, and we are pleased to welcome one of the new visitors to Hartford, one of the new representatives of this area to Hartford. It's a name you will understand and probably recognize pretty quickly. It's Blumenthal. In this case, it's Matt Blumenthal. And Matt is representing the, what number district are you, Matt?
The 147th district.
47, that's Stamford, Darien, and New Canaan. I don't want to leave out New Canaan. Sometimes I have in the past, and I've paid heartily for that. It's nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. And just to clarify, you were correct that the 147th used to cover New Canaan, but it does not any longer.
It does not.
Stamford and Darien. So
sorry, New Canaan, you're gone. That's it.
I will still be looking out for New Canaan sure. as well.
We should say, as I mentioned, the name is familiar. This is because the great senior senator, and it's hard for me to say senior senator because he's not that senior, of the great state of Connecticut is your dad. And so I guess I shouldn't be terribly surprised that you should get into the family business, if you will, now.
Well, it's actually interesting because in many ways, my dad's legacy, as proud of him as I am, sent me running in the opposite direction for much of my life. For many, many years, I stayed away from politics. I wasn't interested in it, but ultimately decided, especially after the last presidential election, that people of my generation, people like me, need to get into the fight for our values and for the future of Connecticut, and that's what motivated me to get directly involved and run for office.
Well, there are lots of similarities, however, to you two, because you're in the Marines.
I was.
You were in Afghanistan?
I was.
And when were you there? When did you?
It was in the fall and winter of 2011.
I remember he was on the show, as a matter of fact, and it was just before he was sending you off on that, and understandably anxious, but proud. And little law thrown into the mix, hard on the heels of that, and here you are, a lawyer, and now a politician along the way too.
Yep.
It's a whole different world. I guess there's a lot of positive mindset and focus and so forth, getting jobs done. But as you take a look at the job that William Tong has left you, it was his seat prior to this. What do you see as the need and the concern? Because you did knock on a lot of doors and find out a lot of things from people.
Absolutely. I knocked on roughly 6,600 doors throughout the campaign, and the rest of my campaign, including a number of wonderful volunteers, knocked on many more as well. We made over 14,000 calls. And what we learned in those conversations is a lot of what we already knew, that the keys to the future of Connecticut and the keys to especially that area of Connecticut that we cover is transportation, education, and improving our economy, getting businesses back into Connecticut that are going to push us forward economically and continue to make us an attractive destination for people who want to raise a family and people who want to start a business.
Did they have some suggestions as to what they would like to see you do to spur that on?
They had lots of suggestions. I think the biggest elements of kind of that trifecta involve the transportation piece. We have the fifth worst roads in the country, and for those of us who use our roads, it may be a surprise that we're not lower on that list. We have over 300 bridges that are in danger of failing. Metro North, which is an economic lifeblood for our state, and especially Fairfield County, continues to degrade in the timeliness and quality of service. So those three elements all are intertwined, both with each other and our economic success. We need to invest in both repairing and upgrading our transportation systems, especially our roads and bridges, and our rail systems, especially commuter rail.
Well, there is now a lockbox, courtesy of the election of several weeks ago. Some might say that it should have been a double lockbox. It should have assured that the money came in first and then was not taken out. And apparently that's not part of the deal. And of course, the president, back when he was running, said, "Oh, infrastructure is my middle name. We're going to get all this done." And not a heck of a lot has been done.
No, we really haven't seen anything from the federal government, and though I would welcome it, certainly, Connecticut needs federal investment as well. I think we need to take the lead in investing in our own infrastructure. I agree that the lockbox measure was not perfect, but it was a very good start. It does provide that transportation revenue or funds that are designated for transportation must actually be used on transportation. Of course, how funds get designated for transportation is another question.
Another story.
But I think, when we're looking at new sources of revenue, especially ones related to transportation, I think something that I'm going to be looking very carefully at is, are we making sure that those new revenues are going to be designated for transportation so that the lockbox measure would actually affect them?
Did you come out pro or against tolls?
So I'm in favor of some tolling measures. I think the devil is really in the details, as it is on many issues. But I think we need the revenue to improve our transportation systems, and I campaigned on that. Really, the big question is, are we going to make sure that they don't negatively affect our businesses here in Connecticut? Are we doing it in a way that's legal? And also, are we going to make sure that commuters and middle-class families here in Connecticut are not negatively affected? And also, I said that we should really be trying to make sure that we don't increase the burden on Connecticut drivers. Connecticut residents already pay, frankly, too much for transportation. That's the problem. We're not actually gathering the revenue from the people, the 40% of traffic that comes from out of state, or the trucks that come through our state. And each one of those loaded 18-wheelers does roughly 9,600 times as much damage as an average mid-sized sedan. Yeah. So it's important that we gather that revenue. I think we should be being very careful not to increase the burden on Connecticut residents or to land a burden on commuters and middle-class residents.
There's currently, I guess, a case going on in Rhode Island as to how to toll certain entities, a la trucks, as you have suggested. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure everybody's going to be watching that very closely to see how we proceed here.
Yes, and I think in some ways the Rhode Island model has already been instructive, because one of the reasons I think this lawsuit's ultimately not going to go anywhere is because Rhode Island went through the Federal Highway Administration, which is a delegation of authority from the Congress, and what's called the Dormant Commerce Clause is the actual constitutional provision at issue. I will not bore you or your listeners with the intricacies of those doctrines.
But what it means is,
if we go through the federal government and we get clearance the way Rhode Island did, we should be in the clear in terms of that constitutional provision, and legally we should be able to do what Rhode Island did.
And that is trucks?
I think so. Trucks
exclusively?
Trucks only tolls, partially because of going through the Federal Highway Administration and or because of the greater burden that they impose on our roads. Trucks only tolls, I think, and many constitutional scholars agree, would be legal. Mm-hmm. I think we should also be gathering revenue from people, from passenger vehicles from out of state that are using our roads. But trucks only tolls is certainly a start, and some estimates have said we could gather between $250 and $300 million a year from trucks only tolls. So as an initial step, I think that it's certainly one that we should pursue and is attractive. How and if we spread that burden beyond trucks is a question that obviously has to be pursued carefully.
But hopefully to have Connecticut drivers held harmless.
Yes, so we need to make sure that we're not additionally burdening those Connecticut drivers in a way that's going to hurt them economically. We need to make sure it's not falling on middle class people and commuters in a way that would overly burden them. That's one of the concerns that's been raised in terms of tolls. And again, it's not that tolls are going to necessarily do that. It's all about how we do them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you are going to be one busy guy.
I already am, and I'm looking forward to being even busier serving the people of the 147th District.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
We're glad to have you on. We'll look forward to catching up with you. Start of the session, which is going to be here before you know it, Matt. So be careful what you wish for. You want to be more busy? Don't worry. It's coming. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Continued success.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Matt Blumenthal, 147th District. And we want to wish him and everybody who's going in there in the next 6 or 7 weeks all the best. That's Meet the Leaders for today. I'm David Smith.